Algeria is a tale and a moral. Its tale differed from all the tales told. Its historical events carried many lessons for all generations. A tale that was not written on paper like all tales and stories. Rather, it was on the remnant of its valiant children. As the ink wasn't an ink, rather been the blood pumped from the hearts of its sons and daughters, that until this very moment runs in the bowels of its land. A tale whose number of pages is as equal to the remains and sacrifices of the Algerian people. 1.5 million page, one to the other, that carried sacrifices and lessons for those who pay heed.
المعركة هي معركتنا كلنا، ما هيش معركة الفلسطينيين وحدهم. احنا حقيقة بعاد من الناحية الجغرافية، لكن عندنا دور.
إن الجزائر التي تعي جدا ثمن انتزاع الحرية لن تتخلى عن مساندة القضايا العادلة ودعم الشعوب المضطهدة التي تكافح
لأن خذنا رجال بالأمس، رجال في المعركة واللي هما ماتوا وما ننساهمش أبدا، وعارفين بين هذوك اللي ماتوا، هذوك أدوا الواجب نتاعهم كان.
Our perdurable military doctrine, the fundamentally rooted within, our defense systems present on the ground.
منظومة الدفاع الجوي بعيدة المدى S-300.
As we prohibit any deviation from the principles and values, as long as our heads remain high, and inspiration will always remain on the horizon, raising banners high.
وصونوا الوديعة ودافعوا عنها حتى آخر قطرة من دمائكم.
And let the sword be drawn, keeping the covenant with commitment.
القسم أن أكون الخادم الوفي لبلدي.
Honoring the oath, values, principles, and traditions of our righteous shuhada.
الجزائر ثابتة بمواقفها. ستبقى الجزائر ثابتة بمواقفها، عاصية على أعدائها وفية لأصدقائها. نساند القضايا بعدل وعلى حمى الوطن نذود، حتى وإن عززوا ظلمهم علينا بالجهود. نحن أناس نسدي الجميل ونرعى ذمام الصديق الودود. من ساح الفدا نعاهدكم، من بلادنا تباركنا صلوات الجدود. يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات.
The driving force that inflames our souls is unalterable, and there's no chance to deviate from the right path as long as we preserve our history and pass it on to the rising generations. Whether France admits to its crimes against the Algerian people or not.
Voici maintenant que l'heure H est proche. Vous vivez dans le blocos de la mise à feu la minute solennelle de la première explosion atomique française. Feu.
For a people who have demonstrated to the whole world with their simple tools their national spirit and revolutionary awareness that reclaimed our homeland that was stolen from usurping hands of Palmyra, that knows no single war law, rather to recognize a forbidden one, as these steadfast militants carted the path to greatness with the blood of the Algerian people and paved it with the remains of the millions of shuhada. So he was truly a role model for the oppressed peoples who are under the burnt of colonialism.
ها هم أبطال المقاومة الشعبية يعودون والعلم الوطني يرفرف فوق أرواحهم وأجسادهم الطاهرة التي سرقها الاستعمار الفرنسي البغيض وهربها وعرضها في متحفه منذ أكثر من قرن ونصف قرن.
The successive revolutions that arose in the face of the usurping colonialists when the east, west, north and south of our country rose up of its resources. And those revolutions and uprising were nothing but the embodiment of the lofty principles of the 1st November Statement and for the ability to regain the right to a free and honorable life on our land.
نداء إلى الشعب الجزائري. أيها الشعب الجزائري، أيها المناضلون من أجل القضية الوطنية، أنتم الذين ستصدرون حكمكم بشأننا.
A country that has maintained for decades its principles inspired by the November Statement in support of liberation causes in the world and has proven its pioneering role in supporting the rights of oppressed colonized people, as well as in pioneering the struggle of the peoples of the world in order to support truth and trim freedom, and on top of it, the main Arab nation cause.
المعركة هي معركتنا كلنا، ما هيش معركة الفلسطينيين وحدهم. احنا حقيقة بعاد من الناحية الجغرافية، لكن عندنا دور اللي يقوموا به.
The independent Algeria answered the call of the Arab nation and played its role to the fullest in its war against the Zionist entity, as it believed that the war was not a war of one front, but rather a war of the Arab nation. It complied with the call of honor and dignity in the two wars of the year 1967 and the year 1973, where its sons, elements of People's National Army, entrenched themselves with their brothers and fought desperately to defend Arab honor. Events continued and times passed, but the values remained firm and the principles remained constant. And the month of November proved once again, on the 15th of it, the year 1988, a new victory. The establishment of the Palestinian state was announced in the land of Algeria.
بسم الله وباسم الشعب وباسم الشعب العربي الفلسطيني قيام دولة فلسطين فوق أرضنا الفلسطينية وعاصمتها القدس الشريف.
Algeria's involvement in human rights organizations today pushes the government and people to denounce the terrible silence of the world as it mutually watches heinous crimes and massacres committed by the Zionist entity and is still being committed against the Palestinian people in violation of international law and international humanitarian law, targeting children, women, and elderly and hospitals in a real war of genocide, trying to forcibly displace the Palestinians without regard of the most basic rights, which are crimes against humanity, and the full-fledged war crimes that call for the persecution of their perpetrators.
أتوجه إلى إخواننا في الجزائر ليقفوا هذه الوقفة، وأنا أذكر قول لبعض إخواني المجاهدين أيام الثورة الجزائرية كانوا يقولون أننا لا نستطيع أن نقول أن الجزائر قد حررت ما دامت فلسطين تحت نير الاستعمار.
Algeria has always called and appealed to all free people of the world and Arab legal experts and human rights bodies and organizations to file a lawsuit before the International Criminal Court for Human Rights against this entity, which, even if it lasts for a long time, will inevitably fail because it is devoid of values, a usurper of the Palestinian people lands, and it is the only way to end decades of impunity for crimes committed against the Palestinians. This deep wound in the body of the nation, which will always remain the subject of interest and concern for the Algerian state, which has never and will never abandon its principles and firm positions toward just causes in the world, most important of which are the mother of all causes, the Palestinian cause, and the last colony in Africa, the Western Sahara.
الطبيعة القانونية للنزاع في الصحراء الغربية. هذه القضية كانت ولا تزال وستظل قضية تصفية استعمار حتى يتمكن شعب الصحراء الغربية من ممارسة حقه غير القابل في التصرف في تقرير مصيره.
وعدنا بأننا سنعود لنقرع مجددا أبواب مجلس الأمن وتطالب بوقف حمام الدم في فلسطين.
What resulted from Algeria's efforts recently was the UN Security Council adopting a ceasefire resolution in Gaza at its own initiative and adopted by the rest of the elected members. This resolution, which is a precedent in the work of the UN Security Council that reflected the sophistication of Algerian diplomacy and its ability to work in the corridors of the United Nations, especially since the beginning of its term, as a non-permanent member of the Council, out of concern for an important principle, which is the right of peoples to live under the protection of freedom. Algeria was and will remain an emblem of freedom and loyal to the friends of its revolution, steadfast in its straight approach to support the weak. It also remains loyal to the principles of the 1st November Statement and its support for all liberation movements and all just causes in the world. events and feats continue, and times and eras change, and between the yesterday and the today in November, the principles remain steadfast, firm on a land on which civilizations have grown. It is Algeria, the Mecca of revolutionaries, the conscience of the peoples, and the bastion of dignity, the justice as its approach and its belief in the right of peoples to freedom, and its advocacy for the right to just causes, regionally and internationally, its steadfastness, its poise, and its restoration of every stiff between nations and states would not have been possible without the lineage of heroes within us. We stand by the oppressed, and we openly defend just causes. We call to resolve conflicts and disputes without interfering in the internal affairs of others, prevailing the voice of truth and conscience in all international forms, and it stands at every call for solidarity to support our brothers.
تجديد المطالبة بعقد جمعية عامة استثنائية لمنح دولة فلسطين العضوية الكاملة فيها. إن الجزائر التي تعي جدا ثمن انتزاع الحرية لن تتخلى عن مساندة القضايا العادلة ودعم الشعوب المضطهدة التي تكافح من أجل التحرر.
Algeria of the triumphs, amidst its glory, elevated with its people, resilient with its army, will remain steadfast to the principles of the 1st November statement. And as it always has called for reunification and resolving disputes by peace, it will remain forever on the right path, calling for a path of unity and solidarity, unity in which there is no place for those who sow despair and strife, away from any laxity, consolidating solidarity and freedom for a message that will never abandon, and whoever supports the truth surely knows that the truth is immortal.
Thank you.